Good evening, everyone. I'd like to gavel in our regular school board meeting of Independent School District number 882. It is 6 p.m. on Monday, March 17th, 2025. Happy St. Patty's Day for those of you who celebrate. I'd like to note, Devaney, that Melissa Curtis and Mark Branson are absent tonight. All right, please stand and join me on the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. All right. Before we get our regular agenda going, wait for Gavin to put a picture up for us here. And unfortunately, we have some sad news. I'll try to hold it together as I read this, but tonight we take a moment to remember and honor Deke Sibley, a Monticello High School senior whose unexpected passing this last week has left a deep void in our community. Deke had a rare and a very special gift, the ability to control the energy in any room, from the classroom to the locker room. He was the one who could break the tension with a perfectly timed joke, lift spirits with a witty remark, and remind everyone not to take life too seriously. His energy was contagious, his presence unforgettable. He was more than just a friend or a teammate. He was a source of laughter and a reminder of how powerful a single person's joy can be. His absence is felt deeply, but his impact will remain in the stories we tell and the smiles he left behind. To Deke's family, friends, teammates, and teachers, our hearts are with you. May we all strive to bring a little more laughter into the world in his honor. Thank you. Now we'll move on to approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Moved by Casey Root, seconded by Jeff Hegle. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say no. Motion passes 4-0. All right, we have no citizen comments tonight. Moving on to fiscal stability. We need approval for our consent agenda.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Casey Root, seconded by Jeff Hegle. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say no. Motion passes 4-0. Next, we're moving on to collaborative connections. We will bring up to the podium Ms. Tina Burkholder, Director of Business Services, to talk about the Wright Technical Center long-term facility maintenance.
Good evening. On your agenda, you have copies of the Wright Technical Center's long-term facility maintenance plan. There's a resolution to approve, as well as their 10-year expenditure plan and their project listing. So normally school districts, we have property that we're able to levy and receive money for our 10-year plan. For Wright Technical Center, they don't have property that they collect tax levy on, so they pass that on to the cooperating districts. So as part of a member of that, our board has to approve that 10-year plan as well. The overall impact should be neutral to the district. We had a bond payment that was coming off, and then their LTFM project plan went up by that amount so that it could be revenue or an expenditure neutral to the districts. So, and it's just, everybody has their share based on usage and access fees with the Wright Technical Center.
Any questions for Tina? No, so this is a resolution.
Be resolved by the School Board of District Number 882, State of Minnesota, as follows. The School Board of the Cooperative School District 966 has approved a long-term facility maintenance program for its facilities for the 2024-2025 school year in the amount of $167,000, of which District Number 82's proportionate share is $26,045.32. The various components of this program budget are attached as Exhibit A hereto and incorporated herein by reference. Said budget is hereby approved. Minnesota Statute Section 123B.53 Subdivision 1, as amended, provides that if a cooperative school district's long-term facility maintenance budget is approved by the school boards of each of the cooperative school districts, member school districts, each member district may include its proportionate share of the cost of the cooperative school district program in its long-term facility maintenance revenue application. 3, the proportionate share of the cost of the cooperative school district's long-term facility maintenance program of each member school district to be included in its application shall be determined by multiplying the total cost of the cooperative school district long-term facility maintenance program times a 3-year weighted average adjusted pupil units formula. The long-term facility maintenance cost shall be funded through an annual levy instead of issuing bonds. The inclusion of this proportionate share in the district's long-term facility maintenance revenue application for the fiscal year 2024 is hereby approved, subject to the approval by the Commissioner of Education. Upon receipt of the proportionate share of the long-term facility maintenance revenue attributable to the cooperative school district program, the district shall promptly pay to the cooperative school district the applicable aid or levy proceeds. Second.
Moved by Jeff Hegle, seconded by Casey Root. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say no. Motion passes 4-0. Thank you, Tina. All right, now we're moving on to item number 8, teaching and learning, and I'll hand it over to Superintendent Eric Olson to do a special shout out.
All right, I'm doing a couple shout outs here recently. I love leaving these for the buildings and program leaders, but it's also important for me to give a few so that people know that I'm recognizing some of the great work that's going on across the district. I'm going to give a shout out to 4 people who I worked with during a special education strategic planning session last week. Rachel Casper is a coordinator in our Level 4 program. Lynn Sacri is a coordinator in our Monticello program, and John Weekly, our special education and co-op director, and Cindy Foshing, our director of teaching and learning. The 4 named above continue to impress me with their relentless approach to making sure that special education is connected, represented, and embedded into our strategic plan. So during our time working together, the 4 people named above provided me with much learning and several resources to digest. There's no doubt that the work they will doing will strengthen and unite our district across Monticello. A key takeaway from last week: it is imperative to remember that all students in special education are our students, and they are general education students first. The concept will help us all work together to provide students who need support the opportunity to receive this collective work done across the district. So I just want to give a shout out to those 4 people. It was really, I think, going to be it's instrumental work that's going to be added to our strategic plan, and I'm very proud of them.
All right, moving on to community education activities reorganization update, also brought to us by Superintendent Eric Olson.
All right. I suppose for this one, I'll move up here. Go ahead, you can, I got the clicker, don't I, Gavin? Thank you. All right, so we're doing some realignment, and this was part of school board work that we had uncovered, where we recently had some activities that were being brought to the board, and we were kind of scratching our head to the wire. These feel a lot like community ed. So I said that I would be working with community ed. That's what we've been doing. I'm still focusing on high quality, cost-effective recreation programs for all ages, while streamlining some of the funding and operations. And so go ahead, Gavin. The purpose of the realignment we're trying to enhance our recreation, but also the financial stability that's going on with the general fund. And I say that because we are going to focus our recreation coordinator into the middle school. And so running cost neutral activities and opportunities for kids. And so we don't look at this as a takeaway. We see this as an opportunity to build on some of the traditional things that we're doing, but also to find some niches that maybe we haven't tapped into, just like we saw at a work session with the high school doing some intramurals. We need to be looking at that middle school as well. Go ahead, Gavin. So just in very specifics, so any non-Minnesota State High School League, which is 7 through 12 activities, they will move under community ed funding. And this is something that is being done across many schools in central Minnesota. Mr. Revnick, Mr. Mack, and I have spent a lot of time looking at some of the models that are currently out there. So we'll still be able to compete in some of the traditional sports that we are at the middle school level, like volleyball and basketball. But we also, like 3 years ago when we looked at making some reductions, we already have moved a lot of our programming to 7-12 programming, and it falls under what Mr. Evnick is leading. So this is just making sure that we unify some of the things that we're doing more, be more intentional with our recreation coordinator, and the responsibilities that that person has in the district. So they'll be focusing on middle school a lot. Obviously, they still have their T-ball and some of the things that they'll do outside of the middle school. But during the school year, a lot of the things that can be done right here and with a group of audience that is ripe to get involved because we've reduced some of their activities 3 years ago. Impact on community education. So in order to do this, you try to find those places that you can reduce somebody's responsibilities. And so we looked at the current recreation coordinator, and that person is spending a lot of time on the computer, inputting things into the computer. And so for the last 3 weeks, Mr. Mack has went around and trained all of our admin assistants and making sure that they have the abilities and know how to schedule things that are from their own building. So for example, if I was Shelley Gilmore at Pinewood and I knew there was a PTO meeting, instead of now going out to the admin assistant and saying, hey, will you contact community ed and give them all the dates of our PTO meetings, and then Deb Stouffer, our admin assistant, would contact community ed. We're giving all admin assistants the right and responsibility to take care of their own house first. Now we've eliminated a middle person, and it'll take away some of the computer work that we are putting on people who should be creating and monitoring programming rather than inputting on spreadsheets. Another piece that we'll do with that facility management and scheduling is that all renters will be able to start seeing schedules. And that means that if I'm an outside renter and I want to request a facility, we're going to operate much like most community educations across the state now, where they'll be able to generate a request right from their own home. They'll be able to see what's already scheduled and be able to put their request in, and then that will be, Mr. Mack will come back here in April to do a more comprehensive. I just wanted to take a look at this first position as it was the most imperative to me to I don't know if it's fixed, but it's to make better and make more unified, because you guys got to see some of the maybe challenges that would come our way if we didn't step in and restructure community ed a little bit. So now instead of having activities have to be proposed at the board level, recreation things proposed at the board level, we'll be able to do what we do and put it in catalogs and monitor things through community education.
So if two people go in and try to reserve the same time, how do we set precedents, or who makes the decision as to who gets that location event?
We'll have Jeremiah show that, but we already have it built in. There is a system of who gets criteria.
Okay.
And that can be some of our next phases. I just wanted to do a small little tidbit here today for you guys to know that this was something that was like, we moved fast and we got it to a point where we already have changed some major things, and we'll do a second part to that.
Okay.
But it is accounted for in the system. And so, we have, like, our local high school would take precedence, that priority number 1. And then in-district things are priority number 2. And then there's like 4 priorities, right, Jeremiah? Yeah. Yep.
Good.
All right. So that's how we've reduced that person's role so that they can take on more responsibilities of enhancement of programs. All right. So go ahead. Yeah. All right. You're good. And then just finally, just more updates in April, and I've already said that, but we'll have Community Ed continue to come here and showcase the things that they are reorganizing, but then also do their close to end of the year review.
Yeah.
All right? Any questions on what we've done so far?
I think it's good. It's not a new headcount, it's just reorganization and optimization process, so.
I think the reason why we looked at doing this 3 years ago was to make sure that we're being fiscal responsible and making sure the classroom is classroom is first, but obviously activities is a close second because you have students engaged. But we have not made huge reductions at the high school 3 years ago. Obviously, we had a little bit this coming year, but a lot of that is being accounted for with the programming that we're setting for kids. So 7 to 12 programming, and now Community Ed as our activities not falling under grades 7 through 12 high school programming. All right.
Other questions? Thank you. All right, now we will move on to our winter spring activities update by our activities director, Mr. Gary Revnig.
All right, good evening. First of all, just want to start out by saying there's 9 schools in the Mississippi 8 Conference that we compete in. We're the second largest school out of those 9. A couple years ago, we were the 3rd. We recently passed St. Francis. Their enrollment has gone down. They're now the 3rd largest. Chisago Lakes is close to us as well in enrollment. We're the biggest 4 schools in the conference. With that said, we had 7 sports competing in the conference this winter. We won 5 out of the 7 conference titles and 6 out of 8 if you count Knowledge Bowl with the fine arts activity. We had our first Knowledge Bowl conference competition this winter as well. I have some slides to go over with you quickly here tonight to get you up to speed on everything that's been happening this winter, which has been a lot. But first, I want to thank Gavin Nelson for helping with the slides and Jared Hines as well. All right, we'll start with fine arts. First thing, One Act. We did that in January. We had a new director this year, Ryan Siddell. He's our advisor, and we had a varsity and a JV team. The varsity performed An Experiment, and the JV performed Desperate Housewives of Shakespeare. Our varsity missed out advancing. They actually competed in sections of 6 schools. 3 advanced to the finals. We finished in 4th in our section competition. First Robotics just wrapped up on Saturday, and they had quite the experience in Grand Forks. So Leanne Gertz and Ann Geib are our 2 advisors. They're both in their first year. We competed for the first time ever in Grand Forks. They left on Wednesday. They stayed 3 nights. And last year, I think out of approximately 60 teams, we took 59th. Our goal is to try to move up 10 or 15 places, and we completely crushed our goal. So we advanced to the semifinals, which we think is the first time in school history. On Friday, we were in 9 competitions, and we won 8 out of the 9 against other schools. And when you're competing, you're in an alliance with 3 schools versus 3 other schools. So when we were competing, we won 8 out of 9, which is pretty cool. And we finished 6th out of 52 high schools up in Grand Forks. So pretty cool that they had such an outstanding experience up there.
That's awesome.
Knowledge Bowl, I kind of briefly talked about that, but our advisor is Courtney Roach. She's been working on increasing our participation. They mainly compete on Saturdays, so it's almost every Saturday in the winter, so that complicates things when you have students that work but they compete on Saturdays. We had a conference championship this year, and we won that. And our top team was Henry Stebner, Dawson Black, he's over here in the back, Nick Green, and Courage Nerninjo. So those four went on and were all conference then for winning it for Monticello High School. So Dawson's here, congrats. DECA State Tournament, our advisor is Kari Graberg, and the season just wrapped up on March 4th. We had 22 students compete at DECA districts. Danny Pays Lemus took first in integrated marketing, and Ryan Eckerman finished first in restaurant and food service management. And we had 12 students that advanced to the state competition representing us this year in DECA. Math team. Our advisors are two of the math teachers at the high school, Mrs. Schenzer and Mr. Ringel. We had a young team. We had 17 participants, and they competed in 5 math competitions this year. Braden Ray he's a 12th grader. He was our top scorer. He finished 7th overall in the competitions that we participated in. And we compete against Elk River, St. Michael, Annandale, and Big Lake. All right, now with our winter sports, start with dance team. They're the first to start. First time in school history, we advanced to the state tournament. Coach Brian has this program competing at a high level. We were consistently in the top 3 in our conference in both high kick and jazz. And like I said, we advanced the state for the first time. We won the section in jazz, and we finished 3rd in high kick. I believe there's 12 teams at sections, and 3 in each category go to state. Our jazz team then, out of 12 teams in the state tournament, advanced to the finals, and they were in the final 6. So outstanding season for our dance team. Girls hockey, we co-op with STMA, and we advanced to the section semifinals again this year. We play in the Lake Conference, and then we had another competitive season, and Coach Bean did an outstanding job in her second year as our head coach. Boys hockey, we went undefeated again this year in the conference, and we lost for the second straight year in the section final to Cathedral. It was another fun season of hockey at the Moose Sherritt Ice Arena. Our team ended with an impressive 23-4-1 record. Boys swim and dive, they also went undefeated in the conference, just had the state tournament as well, and we finished 10th at state. Earning all state, we had Gabe McDermott. He was 7th in diving. The top 8 in each event are all state. Sam Martin was 6th in backstroke. And Sam is a sophomore. He broke 2 school records. And we have had a really strong swimming program at Monticello High School. For him to break 2 records, it's an amazing season for him, and he's only going to get better. And that was in the 200 IM and the backstroke. And then our 400 free relay finished 6th at state. That was Ethan Badhart Ball, Santiago Castro, Lincoln Heckendorf, and Sam Martin. So another strong swim season for the Magic. In wrestling, boys and girls, a highlight this year, we sent 3 wrestlers to the state tournament. Jasmine Downer, who's a senior, she placed 3rd, and Rose Angel Verrett placed 9th. Peyton Rizika advanced to state at 133 pounds for the boys. And Ethan Fisher, who transferred here, his family moved here from Wisconsin. He won his 100th match during the section tournament this year, and he'll be back. He is a junior. Gymnastics, again, a really fun season for the gymnastics team. Second-year head coach Lisa Moran and her staff led her girls to an amazing season. We won the conference, we won the section tournament, and we finished 2nd at the state tournament. Lauren Hansen won state in 3 events, which is amazing. She won bars for the state, she won the floor exercise, and then she was the all-around state champion for Class A gymnastics. Keaton Nowaski, she placed 5th in all-around. She was 3rd in bars and 8th on the floor. Alana Becklin, she placed 8th on bars and 11th on vault. And Sienna Zapata, she placed 17th on the beam. and all of the girls will be back next year. Lauren was a junior for us this year, so we will have a strong team again next year. Girls basketball just finished at state this last week here. Finished 29-2 on the season. We won the Mississippi 8. We won the section title. We advanced to the state tournament for the first time since 2014. Coach Guyan and Coach Balder Lanou were both named section coaches of the year. Boys basketball finished the season 24-5. They just wrapped up the season on Friday. We won the Mississippi 8 conference. We advanced to the section final. We were beaten by Totino Grace. I believe they're the 3-time defending state champs, ranked number 1 in the state. And we led the whole first half. They tied it at right before halftime, and then they just went on a run in the second half. But we played a great game at St. Michael on Friday night. Coach Nauman was selected as section coach of the year for the second straight year. A couple highlights, 2 seniors I want to just give credit to. Jackson Sirocco joined our 1,000 point club. You have to have a great career to get 1,000 points in high school. And Trayvon Singer, our senior point guard, he scored 51 points in the game at Rogers this year. Our school record is by Matt Todd, which is 52 points, so he's just 1 point off. The Coyotes, our adaptive team, Coach Graham led the Coyotes to their first state appearance in floor hockey. We have a very young team. We finished the year 9-3. We also advanced this past fall in soccer. And Monticello Junior, A.J. Joseph, giving him a little credit here tonight, he moved to goalie. He was a defenseman. It was his first year playing goalie, and he excelled in that role for the Coyotes. It's fun watching them play. And then some spring updates just real quick. We're just getting started. We have 2 new head coaches. First one, Mike Klein. He takes over as our head boys tennis coach. He's been a long-time assistant coach and takes over a strong team. Last year we tied for the conference title, and we were second out of the section teams that we play, so just missed out on state. So we look to have a strong team this spring. And then Derek Sibley. He's our new boys golf coach. He's been an assistant for us on the boys hockey staff for the Moose. And then Tyler Anderson, who's alumni, he's going to join them. It'll be his first year as assistant coach as well. So both golf coaches will be new this spring. And then just finally, just a quick update on each team. Baseball officially started today. Softball started last week. Boys and girls golf both started today. Girls track and boys track, they've been going. Girls lacrosse and boys lacrosse, they will start first week in April. Boys tennis will start next week. And then adaptive softball, we weren't sure if we were going to have enough players, and we found out today we will. We co-op with St. Michael and Buffalo, and they practice and play over in Buffalo. And then finally, we will have an adaptive bowling team as well, and we have strong participation numbers in bowling. All right, any questions?
I have a question for you, Gary.
Yeah.
You said we're the top district in our conference in terms of numbers.
Second in enrollment-wise in the
Second.
conference, yep.
Okay. What does that look like, and what does that mean in terms of competing at the single A level versus double A?
Yeah, great question. It hasn't officially come out yet. The high school league looks at enrollment every 2 years. And 2 years ago when they did it, we were number 66. So when you're number 66 in most team sports, the top 64 are in the big class. Our enrollment came out just a couple weeks ago, and we are number 63 now. The reason we're 63 is because they look at your current 9th grade through 12th grade, and then you're set for 2 years. It looks like we'll be in the big class for most sports. Not all, but for most.
Okay.
Some of them we already have been, but it looks like a lot of our team sports will be moving up a class, which means we will probably play schools like in sections, Moorhead, Alexandria, Brainerd, maybe St. Michael, Buffalo, the bigger schools in our area.
That would create a lot of work on your part, because that's all new scheduling?
Yeah, probably the hardest part is I already had the schedules done for next winter, so now I'll try to work in a couple bigger schools that we might see in the postseason.
Right.
Not a question, but it's just so fun to see you up there beaming and talking about the programs that you are so instrumental in leading. So I know that kids have enormous opportunities here in Monticello because of you, and we have state-of-the-art facilities because of what you guys did back in 2015. So
We've
thank
got
you.
great kids and great coaches. I'm very fortunate.
Yeah, super accomplished.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah, I was going to second that as a positive reflection on the students and the staff and the community as a whole, how great everyone's doing in this, so.
Yeah, hopefully the winning will continue in the spring.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, now we're going to move on to innovation and leadership. Our first item is our 2025-2026 budget assumptions. I'd like to welcome up Director of Business Services, Ms. Tina Burkholder.
I looked wrong.
It's your turn.
I didn't see the black. Read the blue.
It's fun to watch. So tonight, coming to you, board members, on our budget assumptions for 25-26, we kind of went over some of these with financial forecast scenarios. So just looking to go over them again to help continue to define the budget process for next year. So where we're at in the budget timeline, this pink box where we're going through staffing projections, trying to get staffing assignments finalized for next year, and looking at supply allocations at our building and department levels. With enrollment assumptions, we have an enrollment projection of the bodies in the buildings, and this table includes the early childhood enrollment projection as well, versus what is the enrollment projection in terms of budget. We don't tend to see the revenues on the kids that are in the buildings as we lose enrollment throughout the school year. And also the enrollment projections, the first column, includes students that are in our cooperative programs. And some kind of flow in between the building programs and the cooperative programs as well. So just trimming that enrollment projection down a little bit for budget purposes. And then on the revenue side, so we found out the last day in February that our general education aid will increase at 2.74% for next year. Summer unemployment funding ends sometime middle of next year. It's still up in the air if we'll get additional one-time money to fund the whole year or what they will do with that. So that's still a little bit unknown. Looking at our state special ed estimates and looking at doing some program shifts, and so we're still tweaking that state special ed number. The revised compensatory funds with the new funding formula. Right now, it is decreased 300,000, so that is in the forecast, and again, that is unknown. The governor is recommending another year of hold harmless with compensatory funds, which would get us back to that 2 million versus the 1.7 million, but again, that's still unknown. And then we have other federal grants in place yet, the Grow Your Own Student and Adult, MTSS, YST, non-exclusionary discipline, mentorship, and intro to ed. On the expenditure side, with staffing, we will be reducing 6.9 FTEs based on enrollment projections. And then again, with special ed staffing needs, looking at the speech FTEs, educational support positions and the programs, and again, looking at additional shifting of the co-op programs to Monticello. Also on expenditures, we typically see 3 retirements, and we've seen 3 retirements on the general fund side, where we will see some savings. The salary and benefit projections are based on board parameters and estimates, because we have a lot of contracts that won't be settled for next year. And we do know we have a health insurance cap at 13% for next year. Also, we have other expenditures, whether it's supplies, utilities, transportation, could increase anywhere from 0 to 10%. We won't have to borrow short-term for cash flow. We will get 90% of our aid in the first year, in the year that it exists, and 10% after. But as the state looks at future budget shortfalls, it could be something that we could see in 2 or 3 years. If they want to try to balance their budget, they might do some gimmicks where we only get 65% of our aid during the year and 35% after. So then we would have to borrow short-term, and typically that is about the cost of a FTE. Our total expenses will probably be a 0.5% under budget. We're normally pretty conservative with our budgets. Fund balance assumptions, we have our fund balance board policy where we try to be within 8 to 16%. We have an assigned committed severance fund balance where we are spending that down for any severance payments that come due. And our carryover assigned balances will be awarded at 50% for 1 more year, and then we will not have those carryover supply budgets with our buildings. And last, we'll utilize our trust for our non-certified employee retiree insurance costs. We have a budget alignment plan of $1.685 million. So with our forecast, it gets us to that 8% at the end of the 25-26 school year. Any questions, or this is a board action to continue the budget process?
Any questions from board members?
No, we've gone through this a couple times already thus far, so that's how we're aligned with these numbers here.
This is an action item.
So moved.
Moved by Casey Root, seconded by Jeff Hegle. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. Motion passes 4-0. Thank you, Tina. All right, now we're moving on to the second item in innovation and leadership. I'd like to welcome to the podium Superintendent Eric Olson to go over new school start time feedback from family, students, and staff.
All right, it's important to continue to be in front of you as we made a big shift this year and make sure that you continue to be briefed on any new information. And so we did do some surveys. So I'll start about the school start time change. So I'll start with just reminding everybody that our goal was not just to make a change, but this was a change that had been long sought after in the Monticello School District by leadership before me, at least 2 separate times in the last 20 years. And so the rationale for wanting to change school times is always based around students, and the new start times are a lot more aligned with the developmental needs of students and optimizing learning conditions and supporting their well-being. That's what most of the research that you can find would be supportive of. And so speaking of research, it shows that aligning school schedules with students' natural sleep patterns improves academic performance, mental health, and well-being. The new start times aim to enhance concentration, attendance, and sleep habits for secondary school students. So one of the things I'd like to do as a future is to really dive into some of our behavior and our attendance. I think that is important data that we've been seeing academics from Director of Teaching and Learning. I think it's important to see some of the other pieces that we have been monitoring this year, including behavior and attendance. And I'll tell you, just speaking of attendance, if you've been following our Magic newsletter, family newsletter that goes out, I've been highlighting attendance every month. And showing the data to families so that they can hopefully own attendance as a family piece, because you can talk about attendance and the benefits, but until families also talk about it to give it that wraparound care, that's when you can see some great movement. And we have our ALP who has had their best attendance ever, and since I've been here. And so we're getting close. We're in the 80 percentile usually with attendance at the ALP, and prior to that, they were anywhere from 30 to 50% attendance. I will also say that 90% is a really big benchmark. Research will say that if you're at school 90% of the time, that you're creating healthy habits for yourself, for your work experience as you grow older, or do post-secondary. So 90% is a benchmark that's used in education, and we've only had 1 month district-wide where we were lower than 90%. So we are ahead of any of the other years that I've been collecting data. So I think our attendance is going to be one of our key pieces of information that we'll be able to hang on. Next slide. Just a reminder, just looking at very specifics about, whoops, sorry, Gavin, I can do it, can't I? Oops. Just a reminder of what the old times used to look like, and see how that, it was a big change. So while I talk about the advantages, we'll also be able to share several points of stressors that come with the new start time changes. So as I look at these times, one of the things that I'd like to point out right now would be the efficiencies of these times. So if you look at the start times of last year, there was an hour and 40-minute difference between when the first bus dropped off at the first school to when it dropped off at the last school. 1 hour, 40-minute difference. And now our difference is 25 minutes. And so that is a very efficient busing system, and one that I think we can be proud of, especially after you worked and had me work, I should say, with the Director of Transportation to make sure that we were getting our times down under that hour. So we've worked hard to make efficient transportation times, and that goes right along with some of the efficiencies that we're seeing with these start times. All right. So when we interviewed families, staff, and students, we put them just into 2 categories. We lumped all of our family data into one. We had 533 responses, and I have questions there for you to look at. But we really tried to make them very simple questions so that we could see if it was a positive change, a negative change, or it was people were indifferent. And so I think if you looked at the first question with families, has it been a positive or low impact change for your family? 55% say yes. And then if I add the indifferent ones, that means that we are, at 76% are finding the start time change to be positive. And then you ask the reverse to just make sure people were reading it correctly, because you should have the exact same answers if you ask the reverse, if you're creating quality data collection. And so have the schools and the changes in school start times been a challenge for your family? And so you would hope that it'd be no, and indifferent would equal around that 75%. And if we look at no and indifferent, you can see actually it goes up a little bit. So I think that's good for us to know. And anytime you're making decisions and you're hitting high 70s to inside the 80% population, it's going to be hard to do something in this district where everybody would be satisfied. And we'll see that when we get to some of the specific pieces of data here in the next slide. But for right now, I'll just also share staff and student. I think if I had to do this survey over, Devaney was a huge helper, driver of this survey and helping me put this together. But I think I would have maybe pulled out staff and student separate and had a third subgroup. But for this one, we wanted to get students all the way down to 3rd grade, and I have received some feedback that maybe that was a little too low, but I thought, hey, let's prepare them for the MCAs, do some technical reading, make it real life applicable. I always hate saying that word in public because I don't pronounce it very good. So there we go. But so staff and student data, have the changes in school start times been a positive change for you? So that was that same question for students and staff, and our yes and our indifferent, our yes being that 48.8, and then that indifferent being 30%. So once again, we're getting deep into the 70%, almost 80%. And then once again, ask the reverse, have the changes in school start times been a negative change for you? And we have our yeses that are the 51%. I'm sorry, have the schools been negative for you? And our no's are the 51.6, and the indifferent are the 25. So we're getting in that mid 75. So it just looks like the data is mirroring and doing a good job of people reading the question, understanding it, and answering with the same type of response, no matter how it was asked. So I'm just going to go on this next slide and just kind of maybe summarize, but I'll just kind of pause for a little bit. I think it's kind of cool for everybody to spend a little bit of time. These next two slides are kind of cool because this one's the summary, but then we have very specific student information and family information coming up. So I'll just kind of summarize this. What families are saying is that increased sleep, better rest for student, especially teens. We know that's not the case for everybody. We know that with that 8 o'clock start time, we know that our elementary students are getting less sleep, but that goes along with their biological rhythms. So it's looking like families are seeing that sleep is at least being a little bit slower for our slower start for our secondary families. More family time. I mean, in my mind, it comes down to mathematics, and our school day is ending earlier. And so mathematically, you should have more time with somebody in your family, and it's hopes that families can work their schedules to maximize that time and what they do together. Improve morning routines. So several families found that new schedule streamlined their morning routines. Everybody doing the same thing, working together, not having that big lag. I know back when we had the old times, I would hear from families like, I'm dropping my middle school off at 7:25, and then what do? I can't leave my 6-year-old home alone, and so they would go in with them or go to Magic Adventures, and that was a big gap of time, an hour and 40 minutes, like I shared at the beginning, that you'd have to or get to do something with your children. But that is maybe was a little taxing. So we're seeing that these time changes have been really good for routines and logistics for a lot of our families. Staff and students, improved alertness. I know our high school teachers are really liking what they're seeing. First hour is a lot different this year for teachers' point of view through high school teachers. And I know we have a lot of connections on the board to high school teachers. So it's making sure that you have time to see this data and then go ask people to how they're really feeling with those relationships that you have. So students are also saying better scheduling and time management as well as staff. Enhance student and family well-being, and improve behavior and daily routines. Now, there are some challenges, and so if we look at what are the challenges, families are saying that increased sleep deprivation, especially in the elementary students. So yes, our students are starting earlier, and so some families are seeing the reverse effect of what our intentions were. Our intentions were to be with the biological rhythms of younger students, and we know that not everybody follows the exact same sleep patterns. It's just like any type of research. The majority would be following those, but not everybody. Childcare challenges and increased costs. We've also seen that on the reverse effect, though, because if they had morning time that they needed childcare, that was, I've seen that as a reverse too. But for this one, people were saying it was a challenge. We all know the busing issues to start out the year were very challenging. And so Mary knew in January, but this fall was rough for us. So we had to really push in, and it took about 2 months to get it settled. We did have a bridge that was out as well, but there's no doubt that key challenge is rightfully shared. Staff and students, some of their challenge, waking up early, lack of sleep. People are saying, that the secondary isn't late enough, but anybody who was on that committee in here, and I know Jamie attended sometimes, and we had other board members who were on the board at that time attend as well. But our intentions were to make sure that our secondary got a little bit later of a start because we felt like being in school for a 7:25 start was early for them. But impact on family schedules, childcare is a challenge from what staff and students are saying. Reduced prep or instructional time, staff members, particularly teachers, express concerns about having less time for preparation before students arrived. That would be an elementary comment, because actually our secondary have the most aligned time we've ever had. Because they used to start at 7:30 and they showed up at 7:15, so that was only 15 minutes. So I just want to make sure you understand where that would come from, and that one right there would come for elementary. There's no doubt, when I was a principal at the elementary, and we didn't start until 9. I even remember 9:10 when I first was principal. We had, and if staff came at 7:30, they had a big chunk of time to work to prepare. So there's no doubt that's an elementary challenge. Then I'll just let you look at some of the CUTE feedback. Specifically, you can kind of just pause and look at this, and we'll make this available for all of our families and on our website as well. But I think these are, just exact quotes of people putting time into sharing what is working or what's not working for them.
It's pleasing to note that some of the families are stating that it does help with their childcare costs. So that was pleasing to hear. And then but you don't have to switch it, but on one of the key positives, it did say that there was less fatigue in the afternoon, and I imagine not only for the high schoolers, but for the elementary, that could have been a true issue. So students and staff said that. That was great to hear.
Sure. You nailed exactly what I would have felt as a person who was in an elementary building in the district for 10 years. I would say the afternoons were more challenging for our students. And then this page is staff and student feedback. So you can see that they call themselves out as a teacher. This one was my favorite of the whole data collection, just because I love hearing the voices of kids. And I mean, pretty cool to be a school district that values kids enough that we, research, or we sent surveys down to 3rd grade. I think that's neat to capture their voices. People did a great job of taking their time and sharing where they're really at with this. And I think what we can do as takeaways, we continue to talk about it. This is something that you're wanting me to dive in and ever have, open town hall meetings to try. We didn't collect emails. We wanted it to be anonymous so that people could give us true feedback. But I do know that we don't have everybody. We're nearing that 80% that are indifferent or it's working. So that means that we know that we have 20% that filled it out. That doesn't mean that everybody filled it out, but it's a pretty good sample size. Anytime you get over 500, I mean, that's a good sample size for us. Any questions? And then obviously I just want to, before I forget, just to say thank you to all the families who filled this out. If they're watching online, or we'll make sure that we put it in our communication. I know it takes extra time to fill out surveys, and sometimes parents or all of us feel like we're surveyed to death, but it's really important to be able to get feedback in this type of scenario, especially with this big change. Okay.
I know the busing, we went through a couple rounds of redoing routes and updating that. I think it's in a couple months he's going to come back and give us another update. Was that planned, or like an end of year roundup to see what?
He'll do an end of the year. Yep. So more in that May or June.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Yeah, it'd be good to hear his input and other things they're running into and updates they make for next year as well. So
we had our first district-wide meeting last week. So I I'm probably the person right now who oversees transportation, and so I work with Joe Kunkel, all the admin assistants, all the principals, and we meet 3 times during the spring all the way through the summer to make sure that we're ready for both summer school and the school year. And so we did our first meeting, and we just go through all the nuts and bolts, what's working with the times, what's not working, any changes, any tweaks that we need to make, getting our letter and communication out for people to check their parent portal and their bus times and make sure that everything's right. And then we're going to have everybody register this year for transportation again. We feel like most school districts are getting the best data when they have people register every year. I know that's an extra, layer of time for families, but what we're noticing is that people who don't take the time to do that and there's changes, then there can be frustrations that they feel like we should have known that change, and we'd rather have it be on the onus of the families. We'll communicate it many times and just make sure that we start fresh every year with new data, just in case. A lot of people move, a lot of people have different cell phones, and it's really important for safety to do this every year, and most districts, as we did our research, are doing it every year. So parents will start to see that letter coming out in April, and then in newsletters several times after that. So, and phone blasts, and we'll do it multiple ways.
The last time we met with Joe Kunkel, he was already talking about next year and how he was excited because there's even some more tweaks they can do through the summer to make bus rides even more efficient, shorter. So it's something that's constantly on his mind of how they can tweak and make things better for the students. So.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right, now we'll move on to safe and healthy culture. I'd like to bring up Director of Human Resources, Rob Daniker, for the second reading of our policies.
Great. Chair Sieben, members of the board, Superintendent Olson, this is second reading of policies for March. We have, I believe, 10 to bring forward tonight for second read, starting with policy number 515. This is the protection and privacy of pupil records. The policy committee reviewed this on March 3rd due to our review cycle. We are in the 500s in our review cycle. Also, this one, there were some minor legislative updates and clarifications provided by the legislature last spring. So the purpose of this policy, the district recognizes its responsibility in regard to the collection, maintenance, and dissemination of pupil records and the protection of privacy rights of students as provided in federal law and state statutes. This is some good reading, about 30 pages long in this policy. Any questions by the board on this one at all? All right. Moving on. Policy 519, brought forward due to our review cycle, interviews of students by outside agencies. The purpose of this policy is as follows. There are occasions in which persons other than school district officials and employees find it necessary to speak with a student during the school day. Student safety and disruption of the educational program is of concern to the school district. The purpose of this policy is to establish the procedures for access to students by authorized individuals during the school day. And there are limited circumstances in which this would be authorized to occur. Building principals are charged with the day-to-day oversight of this policy, or implementation, I should say, of this policy. The policy committee did make some minor tweaks to the MSBA draft after consultation with district legal counsel. Any questions on this one? Okay. Hearing none, moving to 521. Brought forward, this is student disability non-discrimination, brought forward through our review cycle, and also some minor legislative updates from last spring. The purpose of this policy is to protect students, protect students with disabilities from discrimination on the basis of disability, and to identify and evaluate learners who, within the intent of Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973, need services, accommodations, or programs in order that such learners may receive a free, appropriate public education, otherwise known as FAPE. Any questions on 521? Okay, continuing on. We are at policy 525, brought forward through our review cycle work. This is violence prevention, applicable to both students and staff. The purpose of this policy is to recognize that violence has increased and to identify measures that the school district will take in an attempt to maintain a learning and working environment that is free from violent and disruptive behavior. The school board is committed to promoting healthy human relationships and learning environments that are physically and psychologically safe for all members of the school community. It further believes that students are the first priority and that they should be protected from physical and emotional harm during school activities and on school grounds, buses, or field trips while under district supervision. Any questions on 525 at all? Okay, moving to 526. This one brought forward because of our review cycle work. This is hazing prohibition. The purpose of this policy is to maintain a safe learning environment for students and staff that is free from hazing. Hazing activities of any type are inconsistent with the educational goals of the school district and are prohibited at all times. Any questions on 526 at all? Okay. Moving on, next is policy 528, student parental family and marital status non-discrimination, brought forward through the work by the policy committee on the review cycle. The purpose of this policy is as follows. Students are protected from discrimination on the basis of sex and marital status pursuant to Title IX of the Educational Amendments of 1972 and the Minnesota Human Rights Act. This includes discrimination on the basis of pregnancy. The purpose of this school district policy is to provide equal educational opportunity for all students and to prohibit discrimination on the grounds of sex, parental, family, or marital status. Any questions on 528? Okay. Next is 529, staff notification of violent behavior by students. This is brought forward through the policy committee's review cycle work. The purpose of this policy is as follows. In an effort to provide a safe school environment, the assigned classroom teacher and certain staff members should know whether a student to be placed in a classroom has a history of violent behavior. Additionally, decisions should be made regarding how to manage a student. The purpose of this policy is to address the circumstances in which data should be provided to classroom teachers and other school staff members about students with a history of violent behavior, and to establish a procedure for notifying staff regarding the placement of students with a history of violent behavior. Any questions on 529 at all? All right, moving on. Policy 530, immunization requirements brought forward by the policy committee's review cycle work. The purpose of this policy is to require that all students receive proper immunizations as mandated by law to ensure the health and safety of all students. This is a very even-handed policy, includes options, opt-out standards as well, I should say. Any questions on 530? Okay. Policy 531, this is the Pledge of Allegiance policy and brought forward by our policy committee's review cycle work. And just up front, we'll share that there are no changes proposed to the current Pledge of Allegiance policy, which purpose is as follows. The school board recognized the need to display an appropriate United States flag and to provide instruction to students in the proper etiquette, display, and respect of the flag. The purpose of this policy is to provide for the recitation of the Pledge of Allegiance and instruction in school to help further that end. Any questions on 531? Okay. And finally, we are at policy 532, the use of peace officers and crisis teams to remove students with IEPs from school grounds, brought forward by policy committee's review cycle work, also through some minor legislative updates last legislative session. The purpose of this policy is to describe the appropriate use of peace officers and crisis teams to remove, if necessary, a student with individualized education program from school grounds. And that's necessary because students with individualized educational programs do have more legal protections than other general education students in the school environment. Any questions on policy 532? Okay, and it's once again for our audience, the policy committee meets monthly to review generally about 10 to 12 policies for review every month. Their work is diligent and there's a lot to read. That first policy, 515, was a legitimate 30-page document regarding the ins and outs of student data privacy, so it's not always the most exciting reading, and so the policy committee does a lot of work. So these are for action tonight, Chair Sieben.
Well, Rob, work that you do, Jamie, Casey, Mary, policy. I mean, we used to laugh because it just felt like they never end. I mean, Jeff and I would say that, but like, literally, I can't. The ones that you're peeling off policies like we've never done before, and but I get to see the behind the scenes and like the hours that it takes to get to this point is tremendous. So I really look up to this crew and how you guys are doing this, because I've never seen it at this level in the last couple. I'd say last 2 years it's been this way. And we've never had that before. Even when I would be a principal, we wouldn't see this amount of policies that you're getting at the building or at the policy committee level, at the board level, and then Rob takes them at the admin business level. So all admins see these. It's not just in the still of the night where it's being three-hole punched and put in your three reminder. It's like part of our culture now. And I have nothing to do with that. It's all you guys, so.
I think we're even down to punctuation at this point.
Yeah.
And I want to say,
We are.
if it wasn't for Rob bringing his structure and behind this, I don't know if we get through the amount that we do. but
Ebony supports him on that too, yeah.
Yeah, he's brought a great structure to keep us on track and making sure that our school district's updated.
You were going to kill me. Let's just be, Jamie is like, my structure was not going to work for her. So this is so good that we hired Rob.
I just sat quiet and watched. It's-
I do want to recognize Devaney more, though. Devaney does a huge amount of work behind the scenes for prepping the policy committee agenda and reviewing with me monthly the policies to bring forward on that agenda. So, and that she does a lot of the legwork actually in putting the documents together as well. So thank you to Devaney.
Mm-hmm.
And just so everybody knows, there's multiple copies of each document so we can compare the differences and make valid and educated decisions. It's a
That's a
lot.
good point, Mary. It's not just our policy, that's the 30-page document. We're also comparing it to the MSBA and our working copy. And so there's more reading than even just that.
And without Rob and Devaney, it would not be possible to do.
Yeah. All right, board members, this is an action item.
So moved.
Second.
By Casey Root, seconded by Jeff Hegle. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. Motion passes 4-0. Thank you.
You.
All right, and that brings us to the end of our meeting. We are adjourning our meeting at 6 p.m. Our next school board meeting will be Monday, April 7th at 5 p.m. Have a great evening.